Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast with your hosts, Reese Downing and Jacob Workman.
What's up, everyone? Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast, NCAA edition. We are back. The last time we were here was the NFL draft. Just a mere April. Wasn't that long ago. We're here. College football's finally starting. NFL will be back in very soon. But college is here for us. Week 0. We've got 5 games. We're going to do our preview just like we did last year, going over win totals, Heisman, conference championships, the college football playoff predictions, and week 0 games. Joining, as always, on the other side of the world, Reese. Reese, what's going on?
What's going on, brother? How are things going?
Everything's good. I'm happy football's on TV. Preseason, some teams have been playing their starters this year, so we've at least seen that. We've got all the college quarterback transfer news that's been going on, just because this year it's kind of a different year. A lot of years we go in and we know who a lot of the quarterbacks are going to be, and there's some big names returning, at least, even if they've transferred. But this year it's vastly different. Outside of Nussmeier and I don't even know who else. I guess Reed at Texas A&M and DJ Lagway maybe, but there's very few real quarterbacks that are actually returning to their teams. A lot of big name programs having brand new starters this year.
Yeah, it's hard to keep track of all of it with all the transfer portal stuff that's going on, but
yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I'm excited to get going here. It's April definitely feels like it wasn't that far away, but it also feels like it was forever away. I know we've got the preview show today. We've got the NFL show kicking off next week, and then we'll be back to our normal every week schedule of 2 shows a week for you guys. So I'm excited to get back to it.
Well, even next week there's going to be 2 shows because we will have the week 1 college picks too.
That's true.
So we're 2 next week.
Yep.
So we will kick off this one just like we did last year with our 3 favorite win totals that we've got for each. Reese is going to kick it off with his 3.
Yeah, so first team I've got here is Auburn, setting at -7.5. That bet's at +138. Taking a look at the schedule, I think they've got some really tough games ahead of them. Starting off at Baylor, night game on a Friday night. That's not going to be an easy W for them. Unfortunately, I do think the first win of the season for them is going to be versus Ball State. They play them Saturday, September 6th. Of course, we're rooting for the chirp to get an upset there. I don't think it's going to happen. South Alabama, I think, is going to be a win, but then they're going to have a really tough stretch there. They have to go at Oklahoma, at A&M, back home against Georgia, versus Missouri, which I don't think is necessarily a W for them. Then they hit the road at Arkansas. I do have them winning Arkansas, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Mercer, but then the last game of the season for them is November 29th against Bama, and I don't think they're winning that game either. So I've got Auburn sitting at -7.5 as my first win total bet.
So let me throw out a little reminder, because you did just say that you have Auburn beating Vandy. Hugh Freeze has never beat Diego Pavia. He's 0-3, I believe it is now. So
another reason why over 7.5 is going to be a tough stretch.
So let's just see what can we get them to. What do you think their ceiling is? Like, so Baylor? I don't think they're beating Baylor, just because if reports out of Auburn's practices, Hugh Freeze has said that all 3 quarterbacks are practicing and somehow going to play. That's a disaster in itself to begin with. They brought in Jackson Arnold, and he's apparently not even getting the start. So, and then he said that there's going to be 3 different guys calling plays. So we've got 3 different guys calling plays, 3 different quarterbacks. That's a disaster. Like, you can't do that.
No, I mean, we talked a lot last year. There were a couple teams where they did not make a decision at who was going to start a quarterback, and week over week, there was a lot of volatility in their schedule because you just don't know what you're going to get week over week. So I think that's a horrible idea.
Well, and I was pretty last year. I mean, I'll admit when I'm wrong. Dave Aranda, I said last year was going to be the first coach fired, and about midway through the season, they flipped it, and Baylor became very good. Like, they turned it around.
Yeah.
I think Baylor's going to be a surprise. Well, not even. I mean, they're not even really a surprise. They're kind of one of the big teams in the Big 12, but I think they're going to have a great season. I think there's no way in hell they win that game. So we'll chalk up a loss there. Ball State we'll call winnable. So there's 1. South Alabama, I think, is going to be a better game than people think, but we'll give them that. So there's 2. I'm with you. I don't think the next 3 they win any of them. Missouri, it's an iffy, but we'll give them it just to give it to them. So there's 3. Arkansas, I do think they win. I think Pittman will probably be fired by this point. He is kind of my Aranda this year. I think he'll be the first coach fired. I think he's that program's in a disaster. So that is 4. Kentucky, I could see. That's 5. I don't think there's any chance in hell they win at Vandy. I'll give them Mercer 6. I don't think they can win the Iron Bowl. And even if they do, that's only 7, which is still under. So both of us are pretty right on there. I'd say under at plus 138. It's good money. And I don't think there's a chance in hell they can get to 8 wins.
Yeah, I definitely have. I've got their ceiling at 7, and that's the question mark I've got both at Mizzou and at Vanderbilt. So there's definitely a chance that they fall even well short of that. So, well, the second team I have here is actually Baylor, who we just talked about a little bit, sitting there at plus 7.5 wins at minus 104. That first game, again, we just talked about it, Friday Night Lights versus Auburn at home, 8 p.m. I think Baylor wins that game. Their next game, though, is going to be a tough one. They're going to SMU. I think that's probably going to be a loss, but it's probably going to be one of 2, maybe 3 losses that they have for the season. They come back home and play Samford. I think that's a pretty shoe-in of a win. Arizona State, they've got a little bit of stuff that they're trying to take care of. They got some guys that left last year, but they still have Levitt. They still have got Dilly. So that's going to be a tough win. At Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, that's one of those teams where we looked at them last year and thought they were going to perform way better than they ended up playing. So I don't know what's happening with Gundy and the Cowboys out there.
It's a disaster.
Yeah, for sure. Coming back home to play number 17, Kansas State. Kansas State was another one of those teams that was difficult to predict last year. At TCU. TCU is a tough team. I don't think that's a shoe-in by any means, but I do think that Baylor has the talent to be able to get that game. Win at Cincy, home at UCF. I think UCF is probably going to be one of the worst teams in the country this year. Going to play at home against Utah. Game may flip a little bit differently if that is at Utah, but even again, that's another one of those teams that was difficult to predict last year. They didn't have the home field advantage we thought. Then they're going to Zona and then come back home to play Houston. I don't see any reason why Baylor can't get to over 7.5 here. So Samford, Oklahoma State, Cincy, that's 3. UCF, Utah, Zona, that's 6. Houston is 7, and then they just have to win either the Auburn or the TCU game to get to 8. So that's why I've got them at plus 7.5.
I say just to play devil's advocate here. So SMU, Arizona State, Kansas State, TCU, and we need one more. Utah, I guess. Actually, I'm not counting out Houston yet either. But so yeah, I think the 7.5 is a pretty good number, and I think that's why the line is varying right around even. But yeah, I think the over at 8 is probably the safer bet. So I'm with you on that one too.
Yeah, so the last team I have here is Boise State, sitting at plus 10.5. That's also plus 138, same number we have there for Auburn. I mean, frankly, just ripping through the schedule really quick, there's only one game that I see that is probably a definite loss, and that's at Notre Dame. All of these other games are very winnable to me. There's a couple there that they have a possibility of potentially losing, but South Florida, Eastern Washington, Air Force, App State, New Mexico, UNLV, Nevada, Fresno State, San Diego State, Colorado State, and Utah State. Man, they're playing a bunch of states this year. But of all of those games, the only one that I think is probably the most likely loss is Notre Dame because it's at Notre Dame. I don't necessarily think that Boise State's going to get blown out of that. I think it very possibly could be a game, but I like the number at plus 138 with this schedule.
I think that we got to be a little careful with that first one. Thursday night at USF. I think that's a sneaky game, but if they can win that one, I think 11-1 or 12-0 is very realistic.
That's an odd time to play too. It's a Thursday night at 5:30 p.m. So
yeah. I don't quite know weird. The time there, but yeah, little weird. Definitely a travel game for them going all the way down to South Florida, but I definitely think it's a winnable game for Boise State. So yeah, just rounding out here, my 3 win totals. I've got Auburn minus 7.5, Baylor plus 7.5, and Boise State plus 10.5 are my 3 win total bets for the season. Yeah, I'm with you on all 3 of those. I think they're all very good bets. Flipping over to mine, this is not going to be a surprise. We're starting it with the one and only Diego Pavia. He's back for his final season. to take over the SEC. They just need 5 wins. This is the biggest joke of a line I've ever seen. I know it's minus 188. Pay the juice. That's free money. Charleston Southern, 1. Va-Tech on the road. I don't care if they're at Va-Tech. At Va-Tech is not what it used to be. Brent Pry has that program in shambles. That program sucks. And then the next week they're at South Carolina. They're going 1 of 1 there, or 1-1. So there's 2 wins in the first 3 games. Georgia State, 3. Utah State, 4. They just got to win 1 more. And guess what? They got Missouri at home. They got Auburn at home. They got Kentucky at home. They even got LSU at home. Last year, they beat Alabama at home. I think they're going to get 1. They only need 5. I think that's an easy bet.
Yeah, I like this. I like this. Charleston Southern, Virginia Tech. I know the Va-Tech guys already going to be in the comments.
Yep, Va-Tech.
Va-Tech. We're only 11 minutes into the season. You're already pissing people off. I love it.
When you win a game, we might consider calling you Virginia Tech, but win a game and then we'll talk.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple big games down there at the end between Texas, Tennessee. Vandy's definitely got an opportunity to ruin some seasons, so I like it.
Yeah, definitely. And there's nothing. And he already called out Tennessee that last game of the year. He already said Vanderbilt's the team of Tennessee, so he doesn't give. And that's going to be his last regular season, his last SEC game. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So I think this team's going to make a bowl, which is 6 wins. I think they're easily going over 4.5. Like I said, I know it's 188. Take it. It's perfect. Stanford, outside of Kent State, this team is one of the worst. Under 3.5 wins at minus 170. Again, we're paying juice, but again, it's free money. I've only got them with 3 winnable games on this schedule. So they're starting out at Hawaii, then they're going to Mormontown to get some soda at BYU. They're playing BC at home, at Virginia, home against San Jose State, at SMU, home against Florida State, at Miami, home against Pitt, at North Carolina, home against Cal, home against Notre Dame. The 3 games I have that are winnable are Boston College. I think the Pitt one is a little sneaky because they do have to travel out there, and I could see it being maybe a sleepy game. I do think Pitt's going to be a decent team this year, but I'm just giving them the benefit of a doubt. And Cal, I think they can win the game with Cal. That's it. Those are the only 3 games I think that are winnable. This team, I'm going to go over them a little bit later just because they play this week. But just for a little early indication, this team is in complete shambles, and it'll make a little bit more sense when we get to the game preview because they are playing at Hawaii this week in week 0. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this team in a little bit, and it's going to make perfect sense as to why I'm very big on the under 3.5.
Yeah, I'm guessing we're going to dive a little bit into the old Troy Taylor, Frank Reich situation that's going on there and some of that stuff. So I won't take your juice here, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely a couple of these games here that I would like to hear your thoughts on a little bit more, like San Jose State as an example. You jumped over that game.
San Jose State is an excellent team in the Mountain West. They are very good. They could potentially be in the Mountain West Championship game this year.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm sure at some point in time we'll get your thoughts on where you think Florida State's sitting right now, but we'll keep things rolling.
Yeah, I don't even want to talk about them until next week. And next week they play Bama. So I mean, but stay tuned for next week. We'll be talking Florida State. But I do think that it's 10:30. It's on the West Coast. I'm honestly not too worried about that one. Irish fans, I know we got a lot of them on this show. This might surprise you. Over 10.5. CJ Carr was announced starting quarterback today. I don't really think that was much of a surprise. Plus 126 to the over at 10.5. All right. I'm going to make some sense of this. I've got 5 games that are questionable to me. I'm going to go through the whole schedule. So we're kicking off at Miami next Saturday. That is a neutral site / possibly Notre Dame home game at best. Miami fans are god-awful. They don't even show up. The team, Carson Beck is not good to me. Cristobal sucks. I think Marcus Freeman is going to put on a coaching display in this game. Now, CJ Carr if you want to call it a road start, I guess that is something you've got to look at. But he's got the best running back in the nation behind him. I think he's going to be okay. This one to me is a bigger one to watch for. Texas A&M is going to be traveling to Notre Dame in week 2. They're going to be coming. Well, there is a bye in between, so I guess they've got that going for them. To note on that also, I wonder if that was strategic because that is a place in the last few years they've lost to Northern Illinois and Marshall. So I wonder if they said, hey, you know what? Instead of the cake game here, that's a look ahead spot, we just take the early bye and go into a real game. Never know. I don't know what teams think, but to me, it's logical. I'm kind of big on Texas A&M this year. I love Reed at quarterback. Elko will be in his second year. Last year when they played, it was Elko's very first game as a head coach, and he was starting Connor Wegman. Wegman's now at Houston. Wegman was ass. He was terrible in that game. I think Reed would have made a big difference with his running ability, as we've seen as the year went on. I want to see Notre Dame play a quarterback that can run like that. I know it's going to be fun because it's Notre Dame's strength, their defense, versus Texas A&M strength, which is an offense. So I think that'll be a fun game. Purdue's god awful. Arkansas is awful. Boise is at home. I like them in that. I don't think NC State's going to be very good either. I think USC is going to be one of the better games of the year. As long as Mayava can stay healthy, I think USC is going to be pretty good. I'm not too scared of BC or Navy. At Pitt is a little dangerous. Road spot later in the year. Syracuse, I don't think they're going to be as good as they were in the last couple of years. And then Stanford, you know my thoughts on them. So the questionable games I have are at Miami, Texas A&M at home, Boise at home, USC at home, and at Pitt. So there's 5. But honestly, they can afford to lose one. If they can get through A&M, if they start season 2-0, this is great shape because I think their only loss would be USC at that point.
Yeah, I can see this. I definitely think. I mean, you think about A&M. That A&M game, even though they had Connor Wegman, that game was tied with Jeremiah Love scored that touchdown with a minute 54 left or something like that in the fourth for them to go up the touchdown, and then they kicked another field goal to make it 10 points before the end of the game. That game was still pretty close. So I do think that's going to be a good game. But even if they somehow lose that game against A&M, I'm with you on Miami. I'm not a big fan of Carson Beck. I think they're going to end up winning that game. And like I said, the one for me when I was looking at it earlier was a potential spot with Boise State, but I can definitely see them here. Syracuse, I'm kind of with you on that based on what I've seen so far in the offseason. I don't think they're going to be quite as good as what they were last year. So yeah, 10.5 here, especially at plus 126.
Yeah, I like it. And honestly, I don't think Boise's going to be able to handle the physicality of Notre Dame. I think that's going to be the difference. But I think USC is the question mark to me. So like I said, as long as they start 2-0, I think this bet's locked. All right. So that is going to wrap up the win totals. Next, we are going to be going into our Heisman predictions. I will let Reese go ahead and go through his.
Yeah, so first one I've got here is Garrett Nussmeier, quarterback at LSU, plus 900. They've got that revamped offense. He's got some new receivers with Brown coming out of Kentucky. He's got Anderson from Oklahoma. Nussmeier had 4,000 yards and 29 touchdowns last year. I think, especially if LSU has a really good regular season going into the playoffs, I think it's a strong possibility that Nussmeier is going to be in contention. Second guy I've got here, Jeremiah Smith. He had a hell of a year as a freshman last year. Now he doesn't have Ibuka there to take some of those catches. He had 76 catches, 1,300 yards, and 16 touchdowns last year. I think he's going to go over on all of those numbers this year. Plus 1,200 is great money. And then the last one here, I'm going to be, I was cautiously optimistic last year going in with Penn State, but Penn State, man, I'm really confident in how this team is looking right now. They brought back a lot. They still have those two beasts of the running backs, arguably the best running backfield in the nation. That's going to take some pressure off of Drew Aller. If this team goes undefeated through the regular season and gets a couple strong wins underneath their belt, I think there's a possibility that Drew Aller is at a minimum going to be in the conversation for Heisman. And at plus 1,800, that's great dollars. So I've got Nussmeier, Smith, and Drew Aller.
Yeah, he was the other one I was thinking of when I was trying to think of the quarterbacks that were back on their teams. That was the other one I was trying to think of.
Yeah. Sure.
So mine, Ty Simpson, quarterback at Alabama, plus 1,800. This is more of just kind of a theory with DeBoer and Grubb being back together. With arguably, I mean, I know Jeremiah Smith gets the hype, but if he's 1A, 1B's Ryan Williams, putting him with Ryan Williams in the Grubb and DeBoer offense, I think we're going to see similar numbers to what Penix did. Penix should have won the Heisman, so I think we're going to come back and see a very similar offense to that. I think Simpson's going to have a huge year with Ryan Williams. I'm with you on Jeremiah Smith. Obviously, a freshman quarterback's best friend is a Jesus wide receiver. So, I mean, I think that's simple. I think he's going to get fed in a lot. Luka's gone, like you said. I mean, no one has really proven to stop him yet outside of a few games. Jeremiah Love at plus 4,000. Just talked about Notre Dame. I think he's going to be the huge part of their offense. The only thing that makes me a little skeptical with him is if Genty didn't win it, then I don't think you can ever give it to a running back ever again. But it is what it is. My Heisman the last 2 years have been very disputed. So Simpson, Smith, and Love, all at pretty decent odds. Next week, going to be going to our conference championship predictions. Let's just go conference by conference with each other. You can go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. For Big 12, I've got Arizona State versus Texas Tech. Arizona State sitting at plus 550. Dilly, Levitt are both returning. They've got the Army transfer, Kanye Udo, helping replace Scat. Kyson Brown's there as well. I like what Arizona State's doing, and I've got them winning the Big 12.
Yeah, I'm the same way. We have the exact same game. We haven't played in Texas Tech. I'm big on Arizona State, just like I was last year. I love the team. I love Dilly. The atmosphere, what he's building, the culture. I think it's great. Obviously, the Big 12 is the Big 12. Home games are great, and road games are hell. That's pretty much the whole conference. There's a lot of parity in the conference, but I think Arizona State bringing everyone back is going to make it a little bit better. The Texas Tech thing, they Carter's already in here with his Jeremiah Love. So Texas Tech is kind of a surprise, but I mean, I know this is going to sound weird, but I like to watch softball. Texas Tech went out and spent $1 million on a pitcher, and she is very good, and she led them to a national championship. So, and she's coming back next year on the same deal. Texas Tech has also went out and spent millions of dollars on this portal class. They are not afraid. Now, they did get some bad news because they lost their starting running back to a torn ACL yesterday, but they still have other guys behind him. I think Texas Tech, with the money they've spent and what they're doing, is going to be a very, very dangerous team this year. Obviously, they have to gel because they are more of a newer team put together, but I'm in on Texas Tech and throwing the tortillas. Let's go
55 million just to clear that up. $55 million is how much Texas Tech spent in transfer portal this season.
I mean, if you're willing to spend $1 million on a softball pitcher, and it worked. She threw every pitch for that team in the College World Series. Every pitch. She's ridiculous. All right, my favorite conference, the ACC. What do you got?
ACC, man, I've got Clemson sitting at plus 110 playing SMU. Clemson, I honestly think this is probably one of the deeper Clemson teams that we've seen in a while. Klubnik's in his third year in Garrett Riley's system. They've got a lot of talent on defense as well. I just think looking at Clemson's schedule, they have a relatively easy path to the ACC title. So I've got the Tigers here plus 110.
Yeah, I'm really hit and miss with Clemson. I've had days where I'm like, man, this team's really good. And I've had days where I've looked at them and I'm like, are they that good? I've got a lot of questions. I think they're gettable. That's for sure. I don't think that they're just a walk in the park every week. I think they're going to surprisingly lose some games. I'm really interested in LSU week 1. Kelly's shit the bed. I mean, he's played Florida State 2 years in a row. Last year they played USC in Vegas, lost them. So they've lost like 3 straight openers. They might have lost. I think that was Kelly's first game at Notre Dame or at LSU was when Florida State. So yeah, so he's lost all of his openers and going on the road to Clemson. No, Clemson fans, you're not the real Death Valley. LSU is. You're just a shithole little town. So the I don't know. I just think by default though I'm going Clemson just because the ACC is not honestly that strong this year, which is where I'm going with Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's schedule is very favorable. I like what they've done. They're building a pretty good program there, to be honest. Last year they were really good, and I think it's just going to continue this year. They had Georgia beat last year in overtime and blew it like 100 times. I just think Georgia Tech has with the schedule and the talent they have. Haynes King's back. I really like Georgia Tech this year, and might even sneak them into the playoff. We'll see when we get to it. What do you got for the Big Ten?
Big Ten, I've got Penn State versus Oregon, with Penn State winning at plus 210. I talked about this a little bit earlier. I think this is the year this team finally takes the next step. James Franklin has struggled against top 5 teams. I think he's got the team in place this year to be able to get it done. One of the teams that he struggled against is Ohio State, so he went and stole their defensive coordinator. They've got a lot of guys that are returning, a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. They got Drew Aller to come back for a senior year. Singleton and Allen are returning. Guys like Durant and Dennis Sutton have returned. There's just a tremendous amount of talent on this team. So I've got Penn State winning the Big Ten championship against Oregon at plus 210.
Yeah, I got the exact same thing. I know I've kind of been a Penn State hater. Last year, they had a great season last year. They're bringing a lot of guys back. Like you just said, it's hard to really doubt this team. But it's also a little hard to put faith in James Franklin. Like that to me is the question. Like, I think this is the year he's got to get over the hump and prove something. Oregon, I think, benefits from a good schedule. I think there are some question marks with Dante Moore because we don't really know yet. He was one of the highest rated prospects when he went to UCLA, but he also got thrown into playing on a UCLA team that was complete shit. So,
yeah,
I mean, he could be great and he could be terrible. Got a little faith in Dan Lanning, though, just because the last 2 quarterbacks, I mean, we had Bo Nix and Dylan Gabriel both went there and both had great years. I would think Dante Moore isn't even new. He was with them last year, too, as a backup. So he has a year already with them. I think Oregon's going to be okay. They recruit their recruiting is incredible. I mean, obviously it should be with what they have there, but they're doing great things there. And with the questions we have at Ohio State still, just because there is some, Julian saying, I mean, what are we going to get from him again? It's one of those freshman quarterback questions. There's so much unknown. We've got some teams that are kind of proven already. So I'm with you on Penn State at plus 210. Finish it up. Oh, go ahead.
The thing about Oregon, and the reason why I have Oregon here versus Ohio State, is if you look at those 2 schedules between the 2 of them, I mean, realistically, we're probably looking at this Penn State Oregon is going to be a rematch of week 5, I think, when Penn State plays Oregon. But if you look at the rest of Oregon's schedule compared to Ohio State, I mean, Ohio State has Texas to kick the season off. They go at Washington, which isn't necessarily a huge game, but we've seen Ohio State struggle on the road at times. They have to go at Illinois. Illinois is ranked 12th right now. Then they have to play Penn State at home. And then they also obviously have the game at the end of the season. So there's just more opportunities for Ohio State to get a loss and get a loss later in the year. And if it's Oregon and Ohio State running right next to each other with 1-loss games, I think it's likely that Oregon's going to get their loss out of the way sooner, which is going to put them in the Big Ten title. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I will say, just because you mentioned them, I think Illinois might be the most overrated team in college football right now. But we'll let the season play out and see how it goes.
Yeah, for sure.
SEC, we have different winners for the first time.
Yes, we do. We've got a little bit of switch on the teams here. But I've got Texas winning the SEC at plus 280 playing LSU. I think this team is stacked with talent. They're arguably the best defense in the country, and I think they have the second best backfield, third best backfield in the country behind Penn State and Notre Dame. Multiple All-Americans on the defensive side of the ball, like Simmons and Hill Jr. The question mark here is going to be, does Arch perform up to expectations, right? Because he's got a pretty limited amount of experience in what we've seen out of him. But there's a lot of talent that's surrounding him, and that usually can cover some of those weak spots, right? So if there's going to be a team where Arch is going to get thrown into the mix, it's going to be an uber talented team like Texas, where they have the ability to potentially win in a challenging conference like the SEC. So I have Texas winning the SEC championship at plus 280 against LSU.
Yeah, and my thing with LSU is I just don't trust Brian Kelly. I mean, the team is going to be very good, but to me, I mentioned it a little earlier with the Ty Simpson thing. with Grubb and DeBoer being back together, Alabama still has one of the best rosters in college football. I know last year wasn't that great of a season. I think Simpson's more his type of quarterback than Milroe was. I think they get it going again. I think there's a little bit of a resurgence down in Tuscaloosa. I love Bama this year. I'll take them at plus 480 to win the conference over Texas. And like you said, does Arch perform? We'll see. Texas is really good though. another really good program and a really good team all over. But I'm surprisingly big on Bama this year. All right. So next we're going to go through the college football playoff schedule for this season. So the first round is going to be Friday, December 19th with just one game. And then Saturday, December 20th, we're getting 3 games. And just like last year, the NFL is going head to head with the playoffs. The NFL is going to be throwing the Packers at Bears and Philly at Washington on that day. So we got 2 divisional games with 3 college football playoff games. Quarterfinals, we got New Year's Eve, just one, the Cotton Bowl, and then New Year's Day, Orange Bowl, Rose Bowl, Sugar Bowl. Semifinals are the 8th and 9th, which I don't like. I wish they were the same day. But we got the Fiesta Bowl and the Peach Bowl. And then Monday, January 19th, National Championship in Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, where the Notre Dame Miami game will be played next week. Reese, you got anything on the schedule?
I mean, I think the big thing here for this year is that they're seeding 1 through 12, right? Versus the conference teams that are getting dropped in. The one thing that I do wish, and I talked about this a lot last year, is I wish that in the quarterfinal matchups for the 1 through 4 with those teams that got the bye, they had an opportunity to play a game at home instead of being on the road in these neutral sites. But yeah, I mean, other than that, it's going to be a fun schedule like it always is.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, I don't think they'll ever change it. I mean, they're trying to talk about expanding it already again, but the quarterfinals should definitely be on home fields. And to me, the championship should be the Rose Bowl every year. I know I said that a lot last year, but I think that's just an easy thing we could fix. I know there's enough revenue sharing that they can make these bowls happy. I think it's stupid, but yeah, as you mentioned, there are some changes this year. The 4 conference or highest ranked conference championships are no longer automatically getting a first round bye. It will be seeded. The 12-team playoff bracket is going to be seeded directly based on the College Football Playoff Selection Committee's final ranking. If one or more of the 5 highest ranked conference champions are ranked outside of the top 12, that team or teams would then move up to be the 12th seed, 11th seed, etc., based on number of conference championships outside of the top 12. I don't know how many times that'll happen, but I could see it happening. There's plenty of times you could get a team that is not in the top 12 to win one of these conferences. Financially, not much did change. The highest ranked conference championship, our champions will still receive an $8 million payout, even if they are not among the top 4 seeds. So that's one thing that they're at least keeping status quo for the teams that do win. And then just some committee notes. They're going to continue to rank teams based on performance, including conference championship, strength of schedule, head-to-head results, and common opponent comparisons. So a little bit of change. I know people were pretty pissed off last year about it and trying to make sense of that playoff when the 8th team was the 4th team on the bracket and the 12th team was 4, and it didn't make any damn sense. So at least we're getting some logical explanation this year. I don't know how I feel about the conference champions not being automatically in the top 4, though.
Yeah,
I don't know. We'll see what it looks like this year, but it's one thing that kind of questions. And now that does open the door for Notre Dame to get one of the top 4 spots, which they could not do before. And to me, I don't agree with that. Their schedule this year is shit. Like their schedule's not tough. So they're going to cakewalk through. They don't have a conference championship game. So they're going to have a month off essentially of just sitting there and probably be a top 4 seed because 11-1 or 12-0 Notre Dame team, it's going to be a top 4 team. So yeah. I don't know. I don't like that change of it. I think that's not fair at all to the teams that have to play a conference championship game, and Notre Dame doesn't have to revenue share. They keep all the money themselves. So, if I'm Notre Dame sitting the way they are right now, why the hell would you ever join a conference? I'd eliminate that talk immediately. Reese, go ahead and go into your playoff prediction.
Yeah, so I'll go through these relatively quickly here. I've got Texas, Penn State, LSU, and Ohio State sitting in the top 4 spots. The reason why I have Ohio State sitting where they're at is because I have a feeling that Oregon's going to lose in the Big Ten. They're going to be a 2-loss team. Ohio State may be a 1-loss team that has it a little bit later in the season. So I think it's just a possibility that they might leapfrog them. My first round matchups, I've got Clemson at home against Boise State, Bama at home against Oregon, Notre Dame at home against SMU, and Arizona State at home against Tennessee. I have Arizona State, Notre Dame, Bama, and Clemson winning into the quarterfinal matchups. Those games I have Ohio State, Texas, LSU, and Penn State. Got Texas and Penn State playing in the national championship, and I talked about it a little bit ago. I do think that there's a strong possibility that this is potentially Penn State's year. And if I'm looking at Texas and Penn State, I think these are 2 pretty evenly matched up teams. We'll see what happens when they get to the end of the season on who's still playing, if there's anybody dealing with any injuries or anything like that. But I've got Penn State winning the national championship this year.
So one of the changes that you would have, obviously you see 2 Big Ten teams and 2 SEC teams in the 1 through 4. So that is one of the changes we were just talking about. One thing you did say, though, and this is where I hope the selection committee comes in, because if it's Oregon, Penn State in the Big Ten championship and Oregon were to lose, I hope that would keep Oregon at 4 still. Like
you would think, but
yeah,
I'm trying to predict bullshit, because that's what always ends up happening, right? So
100%. Yeah. All right, we'll jump over to mine. So my number 1 seed was Penn State. My number 2 seed was Alabama. Number 3, I have Notre Dame. Number 4, I have Arizona State. So first round matchups. Texas is playing Boise State in Austin. I like Texas in that. Ohio State will be playing Oklahoma in Columbus. I like Ohio State. Clemson, Georgia Tech would be an ACC rematch. That would be in Clemson. I like Clemson in that. And Oregon, LSU would be in Eugene. I like Oregon on their home field. So that makes second round matchups. Texas, Arizona State, which was a game we saw last year. It was one of the best playoff games last year. Arizona State had that game won.
Yeah, such a good game.
So mad. But I think this year they would get revenge. I like Arizona State to advance. I do like Penn State to beat Ohio State. Notre Dame, Clemson. I'm going to take Clemson because, like I just mentioned a few minutes ago, Notre Dame would have a month off. Clemson would have played in the ACC championship, only had a couple weeks off, and then played again in the first round. That's we saw last year. That kind of was an advantage. Those teams that had that long time off. Plus, Clemson's a veteran team. I think it would bode very well for Clemson in that matchup. Oregon and Alabama. I like Bama. Arizona State, Penn State. I really debated this one a lot just because I really love this Arizona State team, but I think the experience, it's 2 very experienced teams. I will give Penn State the benefit of the doubt in this one and let James Franklin finally make it to a national championship. I got Bama beating Clemson, but I do not have James Franklin winning the championship. I'm going with Kalen DeBoer, Ryan Grubb, Ryan Williams, and Ty Simpson. Give me Alabama, Roll Tide.
All right.
Prop bets for this year. Our 10 favorite props. Reese, go ahead.
All right, let's rip through these really quick here. I've got Penn State national champs sitting at plus 700 is my number 1. Arizona State Big 12 champs at plus 550. Liberty Conference USA champs at plus 110. UCLA 6+ wins plus 130. They've got Iamaliava out there, so I think it's a good possibility they can get over 6. LSU 10+ wins at plus 140. Penn State 1+ rushing touchdown in each regular season game plus 200. Syracuse 6+ wins at 155. Tulane American champs at plus 380. SMU 10+ wins at plus 190, and Texas undefeated regular season at plus 600.
I like it. So my 10, as you guys might have noticed when we just did our conference, our playoff previews, and neither one of us had Georgia in the playoff. Georgia missed the playoff at plus 220. I like it. A lot of questions for me there. I think if there's every year, it's this year. Georgia Tech as the ACC champs. I just went over a few minutes ago. I love their schedule. I think they're definitely getting to the ACC championship game. Who's to say they can't beat Clemson in one game? Plus 1,400. I love that. Clemson under 10.5 wins at -142. I know you got to pay a little juice, but I still like it. I think they're definitely going to lose some games, especially if they lose week 1 to LSU. Buffalo is the MAC champs at +550. I know Toledo's getting a lot of love. Buffalo is going to be very good right behind them. I think Buffalo is definitely a team that could sneak in there and win the MAC. I got Penn State as Big Ten champs and to make the playoff. To make a playoff at -350, yeah, you're paying a lot. To me, there's not a more lock pick you could possibly bet than Penn State to make the playoff. It's going to take something drastic for them not to make the playoff this year. Big Ten champ at +210. It's good money. I think they're going to be in the game. Arkansas under 5.5 wins. I kind of mentioned it earlier. I think Pittman will probably be fired during the season. They've got just a pure disaster going on there. Jacksonville State under 6.5 wins. Rich Rod left. The whole roster left. I don't see how they can get to 7 wins. -220. I like it. Ryan Williams over 8.5 regular season touchdowns at -125. Just for a little note on that, Washington in 2023, Rome Odunze had 13 touchdowns. Jalen Polk had 9 touchdowns, and Jalen McMillan had 5 in limited games because he was hurt. I think Ryan Williams could probably get over to 9. Notre Dame undefeated season at +420. I talked about them when I was doing their win total. There's only a couple games that really scare me, and I think they can win them. +420. Sprinkle some on that. This one's kind of a long shot. Jeremiah Smith, 1 receiving touchdown in every game, +7,000. 100 receiving yards in every game, +12,500. And over 10.5 receiving touchdowns on the season at -114. Last year, he finished with 10 touchdowns with that loaded receiver room. I think things will be a little different. Like we both mentioned, I think he's going to get a little more targets. So I definitely like him over the 10.5.
And that 100 plus receiving yards every game is juicy.
Yeah. Last year, he only did it 3 games.
Okay.
But I don't know.
No, he doesn't have the receiver room that he did last year. So
yeah. And I mean, there's a reason it's +12,500. I mean,
right.
It's not likely, but I mean, he's going to get fed.
What did you say? Freshman quarterback's favorite
yes.
thing is a number 1 receiver, right? So
yeah. All right. It is time to pick our first 5 games of the year. We are here. Number 22, Iowa State versus number 17, Kansas State. Kansas State's a 3-point favorite in Aviva Stadium in Dublin, Ireland, where Florida State's season died early last year. Over under is 49.5, Saturday at noon on ESPN. So Iowa State probably last year were the best team in the Big 12 before they had some late season defensive injuries. They had a bowl win over Miami, which gave them an 11-win season. That was the first time in their 133-year history to have double-digit wins, which is pretty crazy. They're a pretty good program usually. They are still looking for their first outright conference championship. Iowa State lost 10 straight Farmageddon games from 2008 to 2017, but they've won 5 of the last 7. And in those 5 wins, they covered in all 5. Since 2014, the underdog is 8-3 against the spread in this game. Quarterback Rocco Becht is back for year 3, leading Cyclones offense. His team's pretty loaded on offense and defense. They did lose 2 wide receivers to the NFL, but overall, it's a very good team. And last year, Iowa State won this game in Ames 29-21. Kansas State finished last year 9-4. Quarterback Avery Johnson is back for year 2 as starting quarterback. They're only returning 9 starters from last year, though. Running back Dylan Edwards is back with Johnson in the backfield. They reloaded at wide receiver through the portal, and the secondary is pretty much all new guys also with portal players except for returning safety VJ Payne. I am going road team. Well, they're both technically the road team. I'm going underdog. Give me Matt Campbell and the Iowa State Cyclones +3 to start the season.
Yeah, Iowa State, you said 5 of the last 7. I got 4 of the last 5 here. The last 2 have been 1-score games. They do have a couple solid transfers coming in. That kid from UFC, Townsend, is one of them. On the Kansas State side, obviously, like you said, Avery Johnson's returning, played well in last year's loss. Dylan Edwards is now RB1 for sure. Last year, he was splitting carries. He's going to have an opportunity to be the number 1 guy now. This game was sitting at a 3.5, and it had me swinging back and forth. I think this is either going to be a push or an Iowa State outright win. So I am going to take the points in Iowa State.
All right. Idaho State is going on the road. UNLV minus 25.5 to start the season at Allegiant Stadium, Las Vegas, Nevada. 64.5 over under Saturday at 4 on ESPN. UNLV head coach Barry Odom led them to the Mountain West title game last year where they lost to Boise State. They beat Cal in their bowl game for an 11-3 season. And a very interesting choice to me. Barry Odom left to take the job at Purdue. It's an awful move, in my opinion. I think if he would have stayed just one more year, I think they would have had a lot of success, and he would have got a pretty good job offer in the Power 5 or Power 4. UNLV made the move to hire Dan Mullen, former Florida coach, to be the new head coach. With most players leaving in the portal, Mullen is only returning 6 starters, and they had to bring in a ton of players from the portal. It's really, to me, going to be a wait-and-see approach from this team because of all of the changes. Idaho State, last year the Bengals were 5-7. I tried to read into this team a little bit, and it seems most people are only predicting them to win 4 or 5 games. That doesn't seem too promising to me, even though UNLV is going to be trying to put it together. I think this is probably the perfect team for them to play in their first game. So I'm going to take UNLV minus 25.5.
Yeah, I mean, I've the same. Most of these notes I have are the same. Dan Mullen, obviously one of your favorite old coaches there from Florida, replacing a ton of starters. Normally that would be a red flag, but they drew Idaho State, and that defense averaged giving up almost 40 a game last year. So I am also going to take UNLV at home minus the 25.5.
This is one I'm looking forward to. Fresno State going on the road to Kansas. Kansas finally got their stadium built. They're returning back home to play at home. Kansas is a 13.5 point favorite at David Booth Kansas Memorial Stadium in Lawrence, Kansas. 50.5 over under Saturday at 6:30 on Fox. Fresno finished last year 6-7. New head coach Matt Inns takes over in the last year in the Mountain West, as Fresno will be heading to the new Pac-12 next year. Inns had a ton of success at North Dakota State. Obviously, that's one of the known powerhouses in the FCS, perennial good team. The problem is they're only returning 9 starters. Last year's quarterback Mikey Keene transferred to Michigan, which opened the door for Rice transfer E.J. Warner, son of Kurt Warner, to be the starting quarterback for Fresno. Things are going to look a little different also because they're no longer going to be kind of the flashy team that they've been in the past. They're going to have a new offensive style compared to previous years, a little bit more huddling and more a power run scheme. Kansas, on the other hand, finished 5-7 last year. Head coach Lance Leopold is back. So is quarterback Jalen Daniels for what seems like his 20th year. Defense lost quite a bit, but they did bring back a decent portal class. The D-line is the strength of their defense, and because of the new run focus from Fresno and the ability to put pressure on Warner, I'm going Kansas minus 13.5. And one thing I'll note within that new stadium being finished, they have one of the coolest end zone designs I've ever seen. It's badass. It's going to be fun to watch this weekend. It's like a wheat field background in their end zones. It's cool.
Yeah, I haven't seen the Wheatfield background, but Jalen Daniels returning, Jayhawks back at Memorial. It's a nighttime game. I'm taking Kansas here to win and cover.
Sam Houston State is going on the road to Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky is a 10.5 point favorite at Hutchins Industries LT Smith Stadium in Bowling Green, Kentucky. 60
stadium names.
I know. 61.5 over under Saturday at 7 on CBS Sports Network. Sam Houston State head coach Casey Keeler left for Temple after a 10-3 season, opening the door for new head coach Phil Longo, as we've talked about in the past, because he's the former leader of the dairy raid at Wisconsin. They lost pretty much the whole team to the portal. Stadium renovations are going on. They're going to be playing their games an hour away from campus in Houston. I don't see this being a very good team. It's going to be a tough year. On the other hand, we've got air raid versus air raid because Western Kentucky head coach Tyson Helton is back for a 7th season after an 8-6 season last year. This is another group of 5 team that is not returning much production from the previous season. But like a lot of teams have been doing, they went out and grabbed an OC and a quarterback from Abilene Christian together, brought them in together, and I think that's going to give them another high-powered offense. I will take Western Kentucky minus 10.5.
Yeah, Sam Houston bringing in a lot of transfers, especially on defense, but I'm excited to watch this game because the Hilltoppers bringing in Maverick McIver, I think is how you say his last name, out of Abilene Christian. So he put up video game numbers last year. It's been pretty crazy what he's been able to do. So we'll see how it transfers at the next level here, but I am taking the Hilltoppers and definitely the over in this one.
All right, Stanford finishing out the week 0. Stanford is at Hawaii on the island. Hawaii is a 2.5 point favorite at the Clarence T.C. Ching Athletics Complex in Honolulu, Hawaii. 50.5 over under Saturday at 7:30 on straight CBS. What a national TV audience for this one. Stanford finished last year 3-9. Head coach Troy Taylor was let go at the end of March after an investigation about mistreating female staffers. GM Andrew Luck said the program was in need of a reset. Enter interim head coach Frank Reich. This team is a mess with so much of the team leaving in the April portal window. And to top it off, this team's going to travel more than 26,000 miles this season. This is a recipe for disaster. Hawaii, on the other hand, finished last year 5-7. Head coach and Hawaii quarterback legend Timmy Chang is entering year 4. When he took over this program sucked. It was a complete disaster. Now they're entering year 4. They're returning 18 starters. They didn't even need to use the portal. They've got a very good culture being built. Team chemistry is going on. I love Hawaii in this one. I love Hawaii this whole season. I think they're going to have a great year. Hawaii -2.5 on the island.
Yeah, Stanford, we talked about them a little bit ahead of the show here with the interim coach situation. They've got Cam Rising 2.0 and Gold Branson at quarterback. He's entering his 6th year. He's coming out of Oregon State. Got a bunch of transfer receivers and things like that. I just don't think it's going to be enough. I do like what Chang's been able to do with this team. He's got 14 starters behind quarterback Micah Alejado coming back. I am going to take the Rainbow Warriors here -2.5 to get the win.
All right, so that will wrap up our week 0 picks. We do a lock every week and an underdog every week. Let's get to the locks.
My lock of the week is Kansas -12.5, 13.5. I should say 13.5, but -13.5 against Fresno.
All right, Reese locking Kansas at home. My lock of the week, just talked about it. Give me Hawaii on the island. Like I said, I think Stanford sucks. I think Hawaii's on the rise. Good things are going to happen. Give me Hawaii -2.5. Dog of the week.
All right. There it was. I was waiting on the Carter Howl. We got some updated graphics on here for you guys this season. Got some more underdogs at the bottom here. I am going to take number 22, Iowa State, +132 versus Kansas State as my dog this week.
I am the same. I'm taking Iowa State and Farmageddon in Ireland. I just think they're the better team. Should be a great game, but I do like Iowa State in this one. All right, so that is going to finish up the NCAA 2025 preview and our week 0 picks episode. As Reese said, we are going to be back next week with NFL and week 1 of college football, which there are some great games next week. We're going to be picking some fun ones next week. Week 1's loaded. Anything else before we finish, Reese?
Nope. I appreciate everybody that's listening. Going into year 3 here, and we're excited to get things rolling.
All right. So for Reese Downing, I'm Jacob Workman. That was the Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast, NCAA edition. We will see you guys next week. See you, everyone.
Cheers, guys.